In today's video, it is going to be a fun one, ladies and gentlemen, as I am going to be giving you my tier list ranking for investing in the Pokemon Sword and Shield era. Thought it'd be really fun to do something special like this as the Sword and Shield era comes to a wrap with Crown Zenith less than a week away. But before we jump into it, as always, you want to enter into our weekly giveaways. Make sure you leave a like, comment down below, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We've got 3 winners each and every week. And since you can comment and like on each video, that's multiple opportunities to win. Lastly, if you want to, of course, support the channel in any other way or check out any of the awesome content and product that we are selling to you, make sure you check the links down in the description below, as well as, of course, if you're interested in joining the awesome community that we have formed in our Discord. But jumping into it. So this, I want to kind of give my general criteria on how I am going to be ranking this. It is going to first and foremost be a investability. I want people to understand this. So it has a lot different factors than most people would usually go off of. Obviously, some are going to be like playability for some people. Some people are going to go off of, the general aspect of how fun is it to open. For me, this is purely just based off of an investment aspect. And of course, I'm going to base this partially off of if prices were like more adjusted, but we're still also going to try and go off of what product is available at current prices at the moment in time. But things we need to consider is, of course, sealed product. Well, how's the sealed product selection in this generation set? How is the single selection in terms of cards to invest in? And then the playability aspect in terms of, are there cards that you can, of course, pick up that are going to be in the meta and they're going to be able to increase their value within the 2-year span, because this is obviously going to be, placed when we're talking about investability, looking at a time frame window of medium, long term, and then short term. So we're going to take all of these and combine them all into one. But without further ado, we're going to start off with Sword and Shield base set. So yes, this is going to be a fun one. Sword and Shield base set is what is there to say really about Sword and Shield base set? Let's kind of go take a look at the set as a whole. When it comes to the general product, it has a general booster box. It has a couple of, standard, V boxes that are available, and then it has its standard Elite Trainer box. Nothing really that special when we're talking about from a sealed product perspective. Once we go into the cards, it's got a Marnie. That's, a really cool card. A lot of people are obviously huge waifu fans of Marnie. It's got a Rainbow Snorlax or Rainbow Lapras, a couple of cool gold cards, one of which being a Quick Ball, which is competitively viable. And then it's got a decent amount of competitively viable cards. So with that, Sword and Shield base, when I kind of take all these factors into consideration, do I think it's an amazing set? Like, oh my gosh, look at these awesome pulls you can get? No, but is there at least one, decent pull that you can, of course, get through it? Yeah, there's at least a decent pull that you're going to be able to kind of get throughout this set. Is Marnie a card that you can make an argument is going to be investable long term? Well, considering the character itself seems to be in high demand, yeah, there is definitely an investability aspect to the singles, whether it be, like I said before, the Marnie or just the rainbow cards such as Lapras and Snorlax, who are popular characters. Zacian and Zamazenta too, also an argument to be made. Those cards could do well over the long term if we're just going at it from a singles perspective. However, we take the singles perspective out of the mix. We took a look at the Elite Trainer boxes. They're kind of roughly around in the $45 to $50 price range. We don't expect there to be a reprint, of course, coming anytime soon, so we can't take that into consideration if there is going to have that, if that's going to come to fruition, since this set is about to go out of rotation, whereas some other sets that we're going to be discussing are still in rotation and have chances for reprints. So ultimately, at the end of the day, I hate to say this, but I'm honestly going to put this set and rank it at a D from its overall investability. I don't know if I would put it dead last yet, but we've still got a ways away to kind of go through and have a conversation about investability. Now, next up, we're just going to kind of go in order with this. It's going to be Rebel Clash. Now, what is there to say about Rebel Clash? Once again, Elite Trainer box, extremely expensive. Remember that Sword and Shield figure collection I was hyping up for the longest time? Well, yeah, it's just going up higher and higher. Rebel Clash booster box, super expensive. Most of the items in this set entirely are extremely expensive from a sealed product perspective. So not really an investability opportunity at this point. When we go to the card single selection, obviously there's a Sonya, Fuller, and a Boss's Orders. But other than that, it's pretty much dry. And we can sit here and say to ourselves, once again, there are cards that are completely, of course, competitively viable, Capture Energy, Scoop Up Net, etc. But this set's about to go to rotation. We're not going to get a reprint. We're going to see a lot of the competitive cards get rotated out. So ultimately, at the end of the day, there's very little value to have here. So I'm going to have to rank Rebel Clash even one lower, because at least there's a little bit better of a kind of single selection that you'll be able to invest in, because Sonya could potentially be a future waifu card. Of course, having Giovanni as a Boss's Orders card, that is cool. That's going to have some value to it. But waifu card with Marnie, and then some of the cool Gen 1 rainbows that people like, as well as having the 2 legendary starters and their own variation of gold cards, I think is going to add a lot of value. Some people might be, well, this set has rainbows for the starters. And of course, you can make an argument that there might be value with that, but I feel as if people care more about legendaries just generally across the board from a long-term investability perspective when you're talking about the newer generations. Obviously, older, it's completely different because Charizard's a staple, but you know, when it comes to like Gen 4 Pokemon, you don't really hear a lot of people get hyped up about Infernape, Torterra, and Polion cards. You hear more of a, oh, Dialga, Palkia, Arceus, which is why they pop up far more often in set releases. But yeah, that is kind of where we are with Rebel Clash. And moving on to the next set, let's have a conversation about Darkness Ablaze. Where is there to say? And it's funny too, because I feel like with the succession of Pokemon, and this has always been the history of Pokemon, it's always the first half that's kind of lackluster, and the second half, it just usually always tends to do better, right? So where are we with the product? Booster boxes, it's entirely possible they could have get a reprint for Darkness. I highly, highly doubt it at this point that there's going to be a Darkness Ablaze reprint. There is a Darkness Ablaze ETB though for $30. I think that's an awesome deal to still be able to go and pick up for the long term. We know how ETBs have historically done really well, so I think this is actually still a great pickup. So I'm going to give it a little bit of a point in terms of the sealed product category. Now, in terms of the overall single selection, it really once again comes down to the fact that, hey, look, there's a Charizard. Is it a Rainbow Charizard? Is it a Shiny Charizard? No, it's just a regular Charizard VMAX. Is that something that's going to have value? Of course, over time, Charizards do well, but is it one that's going to carry the entire single selection? Not at all. And that's the thing, is that the once again single selection is weak, and I would make an argument actually that the single selection is even weaker than the other two sets, just purely based off of its kind of Charizard or bust with this set. Playability perspective, the sets once again go out of rotation, so we're not going to take that into consideration in the short term period. So ultimately, what's kind of bringing value to this set in terms of investability? Slightly with the Charizard, but it really has a better sealed product collection possibility since it does have Elite Trainer boxes. So even though I hate the singles selection for this one more, I like the fact that it actually has a sealed product that you're still able to invest in at a really good deal. So I'm actually going to rank Darkness Ablaze slightly above Sword and Shield and Rebel Clash when talking about opportunities in terms of investment. Moving on to the next set, this is where things hopefully start to get better after Champion's Path. So Champion's Path, what is there really to say about this product? I mean, at this point, pin collections went from $15 to now $50. ETBs double the price of MSRP. Premium collections outside of that, not really much to have a conversation about. When you talk about the overall cards aspect, yes, you can say, hey, prices for the Rainbow Charizard are still extremely affordable, all things considered. So there's definitely an opportunity here. Do people really care about the Rainbow Gardevoir? Sadly not. So there wasn't even competitive cards in this set to begin with, even if we were to have a conversation about being in rotation. So ultimately, sealed product sucks for this one. it's only just the 2 Charizards, which, you know, there's an argument to be made. You could totally invest in these because in terms of their overall value and what they've kind of done, they have definitely collapsed and kind of gone sideways for the longest time. So they're at a decent price at the current moment in time. Now, do I think that is going to make it surpass Darkness Ablaze from an investment perspective? Sadly, I'm going to have to say no. It's definitely not going to surpass Darkness Ablaze. Do I think it's entirely possible that it's going to pass the Sword and Shield and Rebel Clash? You know, as much as it pains me to say this, I do think it's actually better than those two, just purely based on the fact of the matter that we know the history of Charizard cards, what they've always proven to us, and I think that the singles or the raw singles themselves have kind of found that bottoming flat line where there is an opportunity to go in and buy those 2 specific cards and honestly forget the rest of the Champions Path set from an investability perspective when you're taking a look at the set as a whole. But now we are getting into finally getting some better sets to have a conversation about, starting with Vivid Voltage. Vivid Voltage is going to be a good one. I actually like a lot of the opportunities in Vivid Voltage. They've got the premium Elite Trainer boxes, which are selling for around $70. If you don't know, those are retailing for around, I mean, how many packs does this include in it? It comes with a grand total of 12 packs. So if I'm correct, the retail value of this is, I think, $65, I want to say, is how much it's going for. And it comes with an awesome promo card for both of the set. So awesome. Absolutely love that. The overall Elite Trainer box price, you can still find in a lot of places for in the 30s. The booster box price itself is still, I mean, you can find it for 120, 115, 110. So there's a ton of value just when we're having a conversation about the sealed aspect of this. Then we're going to the overall card selection and taking a look and seeing, all right, what about cards? Well, the Pikachu, obviously one of a kind in terms of Rainbow Pikachu and a Pikachu mainstream set. You've got a lot of awesome, amazing rare cards, which I had a conversation with you guys about on how I felt like there was a ton of opportunity for them when you're talking about singles and slabs. So I think that, in all honesty, from a just investability side, it's got a lot of amazing cards from the singles perspective. It's got a lot of amazing cards available right now from the seal perspective, and it's about to go out of rotation. If I'm being completely honest, guys, I think that this set overall is kind of a borderline S tier in terms of investability as it stands right now. The only thing that would make it S tier at this point in time is if, of course, you were able to get a wider array of single selection outside of your just general amazing rares, because let's be honest here, other than the amazing rares and the Pikachu, that's kind of it. There's nothing really more that you're able to get to. And that's kind of it, because the price for Vivid Voltage right now, especially when it's about to go out of rotation, same concept with the ETB, that's a really good opportunity to really take advantage of right now, especially when everyone's panicking about booster box reprints and trying to see what's going to be a good opportunity as prices are going up. The Vivid Voltage Elite Trainer boxes and booster boxes have been kind of flatlining and sitting at that general price for the longest time. I mean, let's take a look and see the Vivid Voltage booster boxes. It's just been going sideways, just going up, down, up, down, up, down. So if you are wanting to take advantage of it, you know, you should at least have an opportunity to pick it up for a relatively affordable price. I know on TCG Player it's at $135, but I've seen other sites sell it for as low as $115, $120, like I said before. Moving on to the next set after Vivid Voltage, however, we're going to have a conversation about Shining Fates. Now, Shining Fates, where to begin with Shining Fates? Once again, this will be the last set that is about to go out of rotation from the standard format, so we will not have a conversation about the short-term playability side of this set, but we will have a conversation, however, about these singles. But just before we jump into that, Shining Fates Elite Trainer boxes, values for those have continued to go up. We had quite a bit of a deal for a while. It's gone now, but the Crobat and the Dragapult Premium Collection were at a decent value for the longest time, so there is value to be picked up in these 3 items. If you can still find Shining Fates for under MSRP or at MSRP, I still think it's a good deal from a long-term pickup perspective. So the boat itself has kind of been missed in terms of the overall amazing value that you could have gotten for these 3 specific products. The tins are fine. I think the tins will do good, but I think these 3 in particular are going to perform a lot better. If you're talking about the just mainline non-shiny reverse set, what is there really to love in the standard? I mean, you've got a Skyla, which honestly, I think Skyla is a card that, and maybe it's because it's been printed quite a bit, but I could see this being a total waifu card in the future. I'm honestly surprised this card is not higher valued. In all honesty, maybe I'm just, kind of, looking at it from the, oh, look, we've got 15 rows of this specific card, so there's a lot of supply. But I do think over time there's a possibility for this card to actually do well. So not financial advice, not a financial advisor, but if we're just going off of the waifu theory, I mean, she's always been one of the waifus people really like. And so I definitely hold a lot of value in that. Now, if we move on to just outside of the mainline, cards that you can pull, let's have a conversation about the shiny subset. What is there to like in this set? Charizard, Suicune. Outside of that, it really comes down to all of the, of course, shinies from the Galar region decks. Don't get me wrong, there's Ditto and some other, Lapras Gen 1s, which could, of course, hold their value over time. But in terms of what the investability aspect of this set as a whole is, I really think the most value is going to come from a nostalgic perspective over the long term for the Galar region as a whole. So I think this is a set, if you've just been watching the value of, it's just been continuously going down for the longest time. And so these are all amazing cards where if you really wanted to master set it, you could pick it up for absolutely dirt cheap. Like I said before, with the elite trainer boxes and the the premium collections, value is not as great as I would like it to be, but the singles themselves, I think, are where you're going to find that kind of diamond in the rough opportunity throughout this kind of set as a whole, as I do think there's a ton of undervaluing when it comes to looking at these cards. So ultimately, I do really like this set from an investability perspective. And to be quite frank with you, because of that, I do think I'm actually going to put this somewhere around the A and B tier. I think I'm going to put it at a low A, more than likely going to put it at the back end of things. But before, of course, we finish the tier, I might change a couple things around. But I just like the fact that you still have an opportunity for this card, the cards to be picked up at a cheap price and sealed still at a decent price. If, of course, it was like a couple weeks back when the sealed was much cheaper, then it would be an easy way to throw it into A, but that's kind of what's wavering me on whether I should throw it as an easy A versus a B. Now, finally, here's where we get into the playability side of things as we move on to the second half of the Sword and Shield era. Battle styles. What is there to say about battle styles? Playability wise, a lot of the cards in and of themselves have kind of become less prevalent. Sure, you still have Energy Recycler, Fan of Waves, Level Ball, Escape Rope, but for the most part, a lot of these cards still used, but not nearly as much as we've continued to change the meta with Lost Origin Silver Tempest. So from an investability perspective, I would say most of the cards themselves are kind of old news. There could be potentials for Level Ball to always be wavering in and out of competitive playability, and Escape Rope's always going to, of course, be there. But outside of that, nothing really exciting to have a conversation about for the playability anymore in the short-term span of things. Now, if we're talking about the overall investability of the single side, what is there not to love with the trainer gallery, with the alt art introduction of the Sleepy Tyranitar, the Empoleon? You might not be a big fan of the Urshifus, but I do think they're really cool art designs. So I think there's definitely value to be had here with these alternate arts. I think Tyranitar in particular is going to absolutely slap over the long term. Now, if we have, of course, been looking at the general value of this, it has just been absolutely skyrocketing up. So the general opportunity of this set as a whole, with the best, kind of pickups in the set just continue to go up. The value of that is very less, it's a lot less enticing now for me personally. So I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of picking this up, even though I still think it's not a terrible pickup by any means. I just want to kind of wait and see where the Pokemon Company goes with these upcoming reprints. Are we going to see a Battle Styles reprint at some point? Because it's still about another year or so before it's going to go out of rotation. So, everyone might want to hold your horses on what's going to come to fruition with that. So I want to say at this moment in time, kind of going to lay off of it. And then we're having a conversation outside of that. I do like, of course, the pricing for the Elite Trainer boxes. Those have been sitting at a really nice price for the longest time now. Battle Styles booster boxes, if we don't get a reprint, I mean, of course, not a bad price. Battle Styles has still continuously climbed, but if it is going to get a reprint, then I'm still going to say, wait, be patient on this booster box. But at the end of the day, Battle Styles is always like the redheaded stepchild. It's like you look at Chilling Reign, you look at Fusion, and then you look at Battle Styles, and you compare the three. You're like, it's a good set, but it always gets kind of left out in the cold in that regard. And so for that reason, I'm going to say it's not a bad set by any means in terms of some of the investability. But, you know, if the alt arts hadn't gone up so much in value most recently, which takes away the singles perspective of it, still opportunity in the, of course, sealed product department, but there's just so many better options. It's hard for me to want to put it anywhere higher than the C tier. Now, moving on, speaking of which, when it comes to the overall comparisons as a whole, Chilling Reign is definitely going to be one of those to take a look at. Now, Chilling Reign might be a little bit of a controversial one, and we can always have a conversation about this when talking about the set, because first and foremost, when you look at the set as a whole and the overall art designs, it has amazing, amazing artwork. So many different cards that when you just take a look at the alternate arts, they're just amazing. They're magnificent. So many of them are still at a decent price. Granted, the Galarian Moltres as well as the Blaziken, I mean, the values of those have just, you know, continuously gone up. They've jumped up 30%. Is that a crazy amount? 30%? I mean, it's not really when you take a look at the fact that the Tyranitar is already up 100%. Now, when taking a look at the Blaziken, obviously it's gone up 65%, still less than, but, you know, I still think there's alternative value to be made, as there is quite a bit of these alternate art designs which you could make an argument some people are sleeping on, or just could be a really good pickup in the general long term. So alternate art designs are definitely awesome in the set, and there's just an absolute abundance of them. Now, for moving on to the competitive playability side of things, there are still, once again, cards in the set that are going to be used in the general format that could potentially pop off. Of course, Path to the Peak, Melanie being the main two. Avery could definitely kind of pop in, and so could Fog Crystal. So this is something where, from a playability perspective, you could see things, you know, drastically change one way or another. If we have more cards that are going to be continuously released in the Scarlet and Violet era, that could potentially shake things up. So in all honesty, I think there is some still decent conversation to be had about the playability overall as the set progresses over time. Single selection, once again, is great. Now here's where we get into the kind of rough of it. The sealed product collection, Chilling Reign, this set as a whole. Booster boxes at this moment in time are absolutely crazy. Elite trainer boxes are at that MSRP price point. Is that bad by any means? Not necessarily. Is it bad that it's at MSRP, but you know, I'm definitely missing that $35, $30 price point for the Elite Trainer boxes that are no longer here. And in terms of the overall booster box prices, unless there's going to be reprint for it, it makes it extremely difficult for me to want to put this in a really high tier, just because of how expensive the sealed product is from an investability perspective at this point. Like I said, Chilling Reign ETB is not a bad point, but I would not be touching the booster boxes until I know we're going to get some confirmation that we're not going to get any more reprints for this set, which we don't know at the moment. So for that reason, I think it is a safe assumption to say at this moment in time, I'm going to put Chilling Reign in the B tier. And I think a large portion of why I'm putting it in B tier is because there's just such a lackluster amount of options when looking at the sealed product to invest in. But the singles is definitely carrying it all the way to that kind of B tier. Moving on, Fusion Strike. I think Fusion Strike is actually going to be a little bit of a quick one to have a conversation about. Once again, taking a look at the set as a whole, I think that it's got some amazing, once again, art designs. I think the Celebi is absolutely gorgeous. The value of this card, once again, has been going up quite drastically. So it makes it kind of difficult for me when I'm watching all these alt art designs pop up. But this is a set I feel like has a higher possibility of getting a reprint, considering the fact that Evolving Skies is around the corner of potentially getting a reprint itself. And we know that there's more than likely going to at least be reprints for most of the sets that are in the current 2022 kind of set rotation, so they were introduced in 2022. Is that a guarantee that's going to happen with Fusion? No, but I feel like it has a higher probability of getting a reprint than something like Chilling Reign, for example. And then when you take a look at the overall single selection, it's a great single selection, don't get me wrong, not as good as Chilling Reign, but it is still an amazing single selection, to say the least. When talking about sealed product opportunity, the overall value that you have in this one is you can still get the Fusion Strike Elite Trainer boxes at a decent price right now, which I actually do really enjoy, that you have a Mew character at a decent price at this current moment in time. And so for that reason, I think that you can give it a little bit of a point up over Chilling Reign in the department of, I think that there's opportunity in the sealed product department. I think there's an opportunity in the current state of things with the singles department. And then when we're having a conversation outside of sealed product on just the overall playability of the set as a whole, there is still a decent amount of competitively playable cards. It's got the Battle VIP Pass, it's got a Quick Ball, it's got Cross Switcher Judge. So there's a decent amount of cards that are still competitively playable, and this set not going out of rotation for a while. Now, of course, do you once again ask yourself the question, how much is this really going to change up the meta of things? I mean, quick balls are going to be quick balls. Cross receivers are, they're kind of already formatted in. Battle VIP Pass is at its current point where I don't really see it absolutely skyrocketing in value. So although it does have playability cards, it's not really anything crazy that where it could really shake up the meta because it synergizes with something else. So I'm going to give it less thereof when it comes to the overall investability in the short term of things when you're talking about being a player in the game. But the fact that I do like the sealed product in this set for the Elite Trainer box, I think it's got a higher opportunity of a reprint. Of course, this is always going to waiver things. So if a reprint were to happen, that would change the game in terms of investment opportunity. But if we're going off of, hey, no reprint opportunity, we're just purely looking at it face value, then we just are taking the ETB into consideration. And in this single selection, it's got a Gengar, it's got a Espeon, it's got a Celebi, it's got awesome cards that you're going to have an opportunity to be able to collect in. And so this might seem like a little bit of a hot take, but from an actual investability perspective, I'm going to put this in front of Chilling Reign. Now, do I think Chilling Reign as a set is better? Yes, I do. But once again, we're having a conversation about this from an investability perspective. Chilling Reign, although it does have nice singles that you can invest in, it has zero opportunity in terms of sealed product to invest in, where at least Fusion Strike has that ETB. Moving on to the next set, I did this a little bit out of order. I apologize, but who cares at the end of the day? We're going to, of course, get to it one way or another. Let's have a conversation about Evolving Skies and then celebrations after it. Wow, Evolving Skies. Where do I begin with this set? Booster boxes, overpriced. Elite Trainer boxes, overpriced. Single selection, overpriced. Is there a potential when talking about some of the uncommon cards that you could see a meta shift in something like a Flaffy if there's some electric competitive cards? Booshake Rescue Carrier? Maybe. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm not going to advise anyone to go get an ETB for $70 or a booster box for $300. And outside of that, the single selection are hyper overvalued. So do I really think it's worthwhile investments for anything in this set? I don't think there's a single item I can really point to at this set. And for that reason, I'm going to actually put Evolving Skies dead last when it comes to investability. Once again, please take this in consideration. This is all going off the current prices available. Of course, if you do see that kind of flip and there is going to be a future reprint for Evolving Skies confirmed, we don't know what prices are going to look like, but let's say for the argument, it's going to go down to 120 a booster box, 140 a booster box. Obviously, it's going to hold its weight in gold because it is arguably one of the best sets in the Sword Shield era. But as far as it goes right now, do I think it's one of the best in the Sword Shield era to pick up investing of $300 a booster box? Not at all. So I think it's honestly a quick, final dead last D tier, move on and kind of have a conversation about some other opportunities that are going on in the current market. Speaking of other opportunities, let's have a conversation about celebrations and the classic collection as well as the sealed product within it. So Celebrations, where to begin as a whole, there is still a decent amount of opportunities. You know, elite trainer boxes can still be picked up for around 65, 70 bucks. If you had taken advantage of the Charizard and the Sylveon boxes, which those are no longer there. So it's kind of hard to make an argument for that, but there is still some sealed product that I think is worthwhile picking up. I do, of course, like the collector's chest. Are they more expensive at this point? Yes. Is it kind of less desirable in that regard because of it? Yes. Now looking at the general singles, however, there is definitely some opportunity in the singles collection. I think the Mew could be a card that actually does fairly well. I know a lot of people have concerns about the fact that this celebration set was, of course, printed quite heavily, but ultimately at the end of the day, if you guys remember, Celebrations kind of had its main print and that was it. And Pokemon Company said, hey, we're not printing anymore. So I think there's actually less concern overall of the set in terms of a print perspective. I think the thing you should be more concerned about is the pull rates for which you're able to acquire things within the set. So Umbreon V-Star was one of the most difficult ones to get. Same one with the Mew. So there's actually a couple of cards in this set to be able to pick up. Like I said before, sealed product. I like a lot of the sealed product. They're higher than I would like them to be at, but also they are, how do I want to say this? They're still, being a specialty set, better than the most general standard product that I would say is currently available for such inflated prices. And so for that reason, I'm actually going to put Celebrations at a C tier if we're just going off of general pricing when taking a look at some of the singles being at a fairly decent opportunity. And then the sealed product, you know, you can pick it up, but it's well above MSRP at this point, so it's not really my favorite. But because it's a specialty set, kind of like when you're looking at Hidden Fates, for example, and saying 150 in ETB might not seem the best deal, but we've seen the history of how that ETB's gone up to 300, and wouldn't surprise me if Celebrations did something like that in the future. Now, we are moving on to the character rare segment of this overall set. So, character rare segment, what do I mean by that? The second half. What is there to say about the overall second half, where we're more than likely expecting reprints for most of these booster boxes? I would be surprised if we didn't, but once again, I want to make sure that I am being consistent with everything I'm having a conversation about, and so we're going to just generally go off the assumption if we were not to get reprints and we were to just look at everything as a whole. First and foremost, when it comes to the set, Brilliant Star Elite Trainer boxes, the specialty ones still available. Brilliant Stars Elite Trainer boxes, the non-PC ones have been able to be picked up at around $35 to $30. Arceus V figure, although this is considered to be in the kind of Brilliant Star set, I'm going to take that out and just more or less look at the sets that are purely just going to have Brilliant Star product. And so I like the fact that we've got some amazing opportunities with the Elite Trainer boxes. When you're talking about these singles, if once again we weren't to get any more prints, and so we're expecting this to kind of be it, I would make an argument that a lot of these singles are actually extremely undervalued. The only reason why I'm making this argument now and I haven't been making it before, is because I think that they're going to go down more once we get a reprint. But if they don't get a reprint, then this is probably a really good time to pick them up. So if you disagree with me on the reprint, of course, you know, more or less we haven't gotten confirmations yet on which booster boxes are going to get reprinted, as we have heard from Distro that it's going to be coming sometime soon. But if you think that Brilliant Stars is not going to be one of those that's going to get reprinted, then obviously I can have an understanding of why you would want to pick these singles up now. But if you, of course, are not taking that into account, then still be patient with it. But I think there's just so many opportunities for this Rainbow Charizard, absolutely extremely dirt cheap. This is one of the very few, I think this is the only Rainbow Charizard I know of in the Sword and Shield era that's sub $100. The Arceus V for $40 as an alt art for an Arceus card seems way too low. Same concept for the Rainbow and Gold Arceus card, Luminion. Like, I love Marnie's Pride even. I mean, this set overall, the singles are busted cheap. So I think there's a lot to really love here in terms of the overall single selection on what I think is currently undervalued. Then if we go take a look at Brilliant Star Trainer Gallery, because we're not even talking about just the alternate arts, you do have, of course, the Umbreon and the Sylveon VMAX cards in the Trainer Gallery. In terms of the overall value, they basically went up and then they just kind of flatlined and went down. And so I know that with these cards in particular, they're kind of a lot easier to pull, so they're not nearly as my favorite as the alternate arts, but I still think there's some value to be found in it. So honestly, overall, from an investability perspective, I think that the character rares in this set are decent. investments. I think that the overall alternate art opportunities, rainbows, golds, etc., are incredible. So what's there not to love about that? And then when you also take into consideration that there's still a sealed product opportunity with the elite trainer boxes, I think it's absolutely a home run with some of the opportunities in this set as a whole. Now let's take a look at some of the playability cards. Now, don't get me wrong, obviously it's nice that we have an Ultra Ball, double turbos kind of factored in, same concept with the choice belt, so I'm not really going to take much into consideration with that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm actually going to put this at S tier opportunity. I think as it currently stands right now, there's an S tier opportunity for Brilliant Stars, since there's still, you know, we've seen how the booster boxes have performed for it. So elite trainer boxes, I think, are undervalued with comparing it. And then going off of if the set were not to get another reprint, investability wise, the singles are extremely undervalued, and I would argue are the most undervalued cards that we have available right now for the alternate arts in the alternate arts era of Sword and Shield. So absolutely crazy. I'm not also going to be putting I just want to let everyone know I will not be doing the peekaboo Pokemon cards, or the trick or trade cards. Sorry, the peekaboo. I'm like trying to remember what it's called. But moving on to the next set after Brilliant Stars, Astral Radiance. And this is honestly going to be a quick one for Astral. What is there to really love in the set? The alt art designs are fine. I think the art design itself, I love this art design. I think a lot of people obviously like the design for the Machamp. Do I think that the fact of the matter of this being at $50 right now, like it's flatlined, it's at a good value. So it's definitely like, you know, not overinflated, but do I think it's actually valued appropriately for what kind of card it is? Yeah, if it was a different type of Palkia, then I think we could have a conversation elsewhere, but I feel like a lot of people were kind of had a bitter taste left in their mouth with the overall look of the new forms of the Sinnoh Pokemon. So I just overall don't think the alternate arts are there to be really, you know, desired. Irida obviously is a waifu card, but is held up with a lot of value based on the fact that it is competitively viable. And so I think there's of course value to be had in that instance. Now when we take a look at the set overall from the trainer gallery, obviously I think the Misty card and the Garchomp card are incredible cards that actually could do really, really well long term. So I actually do enjoy those cards quite a bit. But if we're not taking those into consideration outside of that, you know, alternate arts, like I said, it seems like they're kind of valued appropriately. So, you know, what's next? It's the sealed product. Where do we stand with the sealed product? Overall elite trainer boxes, obviously $50, still available on the Pokemon Center website. You can get the ETBs for around 30, sub $30, which I think is actually a really good price, all things considered. And then in terms of the booster boxes, if we were to kind of cut it off right here, it is definitely one of the cheapest, but for a reason. So do I think there's value to be had? Yes, I think that you've got some really cool character rare cards that could do well. I think you've got ETB opportunity. And so I actually think there's something to be desired here with Astral Radiance from an investability perspective. But with the alternate arts value being so less thereof, but the sealed product value being so good compared to most of the other ones that we've had a conversation about, I feel like it's only fair. Oh, do I put this? Here's the real question. Do I put this at a low B or a high C? That's the question I feel like I'm asking myself right now. I think that having it at a low B makes sense to me, honestly, just because you can get the ETBs for so cheap, and a Darkrai character is going to do really well. And I think the Garchomp and the Starmie are going to absolutely crush it long term in terms of cards. And although I might not be the biggest fan of the alternate arts themselves, I do think alternate arts in general will do well long term. So I can't completely rule them out over a long term perspective. Now moving on to the next set, Pokemon Go as a set, ETB's dirt cheap. The cards themselves within the set, absolutely dirt cheap. I mean, you're getting an alternate art Mewtwo for $27. That's insane. That is insane. The product you're able to get for Pogo, insane. I mean, you've got a shiny Charizard that you're obviously able to get for a dirt cheap price. We've never had a shiny Venusaur in the history of Pokemon, and you're able to get that for a dirt cheap price. The opportunity that you have for Pogo investments, which people might say to themselves, oh, well, I don't really care about the set as a whole. Well, just take a look at, once again, I've made this argument before, I'll make it again. The set as a whole for Shining Legends, people hated it at first, but these are such comparable sets on why I think this could do extremely well long term and kind of mimic it. The Radiant Eevee collection is an awesome opportunity as a product as a whole. So honestly, this might be a hot take for a lot of people, but I'm going to say this again. I think that this is honestly an S tier opportunity in terms of investments, because you're getting a specialty ETB at around the $40 price point, just purely based off of market. It's got a Mewtwo alternate art, whether you like the alternate art design or not. People hated the test tube Mewtwo alternate design. It was dirt cheap when it first came out for Shining Legends, and now it is the highest card in the overall set expense wise, and the pack value for, of course, Shining Legends at the time were dirt cheap, and now they're going for in the 20s. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if Pogo really mimicked that. Now, is there going to be the Pogo stamp that could potentially change the value of that over time? Yes, it's entirely possible. But once again, the art designs themselves, it's not like it's anything lackluster, less than thereof of what was in the Shining Legends set. So I think people are sleeping on this for so many opportunities, whether it be within the singles or the sealed product. And so I honestly have to put it at S tier. And I know that, like I said before, this might sound controversial, but this is just going off of my personal opinion when you're comparing it to the rest of the market and a lot of the rest of the opportunities that we have available currently right now. Now, finally, we are on the last stretch, a little bit longer of a video than what we usually do, but I thought it would be a fun one to still do nonetheless. Moving on to Lost Origin Trainer Gallery. I mean, come on, guys. Lost Origin Trainer Gallery, incredible. Has a Pikachu, so much to love there. In terms of the alternate art designs, the Aerodactyl, you know, people might say I'm crazy on this, but I do think that at around the $115, $120 price point, I don't think it's overvalued at that. I think that's an appropriate evaluation, and you could even make a long-term argument that it's going to be valued more. Do I think the Giratina being at its current price point is valued properly? Yes, I do. I do think it's valued properly. So in terms of the overall set as a whole, I'm going to have to put it at that. Lost Origin Elite Trainer Box. I love the Elite Trainer Box design for the standard. The other non-standard is still cool too if you are someone that's a fan of that, but you've got sealed product opportunity there. And then the booster boxes, once again, do I think it's a little bit overvalued? Do I think we're going to get a reprint for it? Of course. But hypothetically, if we weren't going to get a reprint for it and we're just comparing all the general other prices, I actually really like Lost Origin as a long-term set from an investability perspective. Now, maybe the pull rates are going to change that for a lot of people, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that you've got a decent price for the Elite Trainer Box, you've got a decent price for the Booster Box, and the single selection, both for the Character Rare subset and for the main set, are awesome. I actually really like it a lot, and I think for that reason, it's extremely strong. Now, do I think I can put it at S tier strong? Well, it's kind of hard for me to say that, you know, when I look at Vivid Voltage as a whole, and I of course didn't put it because it didn't have the same single selection, but I had a better sealed product selection. I think it's kind of inverse with this. Single selection is better, but the sealed product selection is good, but not great. So I think that I'm going to put it on the cusp of S tier, and I'm going to put it right in front of Vivid Voltage. Moving on to the next set, Silver Tempest. What is there to have a conversation about once again with Silver Tempest? Elite Trainer Boxes, once again, great value. The unknown artwork's cool, but it's nothing crazy. Lugia, I mean, Lugia cards are going to do well over time. I honestly think $200, you know, if it does get another reprint, it's probably going to crash quite a bit. But if it's not getting a reprint, then obviously that's a completely different conversation to be had. But if it is going to get a if it is not going to get a reprint, I think that there's an argument to be made that should be going up quite a bit in value. Serena, competitively playable card, waifu card, value to be had with that. Gold Lugia, Rainbow Lugia, value to be had. So the characters themselves, I mean, having a Lugia, it's going to be a strong character. I think Candace is definitely a character that should be a lot higher than it actually is, and will probably represent that over the long period of time. And then in terms of the set, you know, as it currently stands, being competitively viable, there is some opportunities, like with some of the other sets such as Lost Origin, to be considered, where Lost Origin has really kind of changed the meta with things. And I think you also are going to have to take that into consideration with Silver Tempest. Ultimately, when we're talking about the set and its overall trainer gallery, it is not nearly, in my personal opinion, as good as Lost Origins, but it still has Rayquaza, and Rayquaza is going to hold value with that. So it's definitely difficult to really say anything outside of that. And for that reason, I'm honestly going to put Silver Tempest. I mean, God, it sucks, but it's like Lugia is going to Lugia. It's going to hold itself some value over time. I feel like I have to put Silver Tempest somewhere in that A tier. Do I put it above Vivid Voltage when Vivid Voltage is about to go to rotation? I'm going to have to put it behind Vivid Voltage, honestly, on this one in terms of an investability perspective. So, and I know everyone wants me to have a conversation about Crown Zenith. What are your thoughts on Crown Zenith? You guys know my personal opinion. If I were to put sealed product, I'd put it at S tier, but singles, we're waiting for the singles pricing and seeing where that kind of lands. So I can only kind of leave you guys with that. But in terms of my tier, is there any kind of things that I want to change up before I finalize it? So just looking at it right now, this is kind of what I would say is if there were no reprints, this is kind of where I would put everything. However, if there were reprints for the set, that would drastically change things. And so I'm actually going to swap this around real quick and tell you guys what it would look like if there was reprints. We went through the set, we had a conversation with everything. Where would I kind of put things when comparing to alternative opportunities? Well, this immediately goes to S tier. Brilliant Star, I think, is going to stay at S tier. I think Lost Origin gets a reprint. That puts it an S tier opportunity. I think that Silver Tempest goes to an S tier opportunity. I think Vivid Voltage stays A, Shining Fate stays A. I think Pogo now becomes the top of A tier. If Fusion Strike were to, of course, get a reprint as well, we were to say with that, I'm probably going to put Fusion right here in terms of investability opportunity. Chilling Reign, I doubt it's going to get a reprint, but you know, if it were to get a reprint, I would put it right here at around the front of... Would I put it at the front of the A tier or would I put it higher? Honestly, if I'm being completely honest and transparent with you guys, if Chilling Reign were to get a reprint and we were to see singles prices change for it, I would put Chilling Reign right here in S tier. And I'd probably put Brilliant Stars. And I keep Brilliant Stars in B tier. So yeah, if we were to get a reprint for the set overall as a whole, I think this is where I would change it. Yeah, if we were to get a reprint, because these sets are about to go out of rotation. Pokemon companies announced they're not going to reprint these, so no conversation about that. Vivid Voltage Shining Fate's also about to go out of rotation, but I still think even with that, that almost adds more value to the conversation because of their pricing being still so cheap, so that's going to be awesome. Pogo obviously changes down to an A because of the comparison of value between everything else. And then Fusion Strike as a whole, I really love Fusion as an A. But once again, in terms of the overall sealed product compared to the rest, it's just so hard to really argue ultimately at the end of the day when looking at all the other ones. But maybe I put Vivid Voltage behind that because I don't know. Yeah, we'll put Vivid Voltage behind and we'll put it here. I feel like this is right. So all right, so that is going to be my final tier list. Obviously I went through, broke it down if we weren't going to have reprints, but this is the part where I'm showing you guys if we were to have reprints, where I would kind of change things from that general perspective on, you know, the investability of it all. But at the end of the day, hopefully you guys found this video to be informative. Once again, it's just my personal opinion. If you have your critiques, please feel free to let me know when I have a video about if there were to be a reprint for this product. If it weren't to get a reprint for this product, Chilling Reign weren't to get a reprint, then obviously I would probably put it back at around the B tier rank. But if it were to get a reprint, I mean, it's hard not to put it in the S tier. So, but at the end of the day, that is all for today's video. If you want to enter into weekly giveaways, make sure you leave a like, comment down below, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We post pre-recorded content for you to do so each and every week, and we've got 3 winners each and every week. And since you can comment and like in each video, that's multiple opportunities to win and enter. And then lastly, if you want to join the community or of course support the channel any other way, links are down in the description below for both our Discord as well as all of our other socials. And yeah, that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Until then, I will see you all on Friday. Peace.